You know my name. I'm with the company for the last 15, 16 years now. Uh, I'm basically a chemical engineer. Fortunately or unfortunately, I never worked at a plant. A chemical engineer not working at a plant is not a good chemical engineer for sure. There's nothing to boast about. But it so happened that, when you're growing up, your first experiences, are lasting experiences. They create an impression in your mind. So we went to a plant which was in the public sector, a cement plant, where the dust was flying all over, and from the university we went to see the plant, and people were in bad shape, and there was a lot of noise, and the thought occurred to me that if I worked this kind of environment, I probably will go deaf. So I said it didn't really click to me that I should be working at a plant. But then fortunate thing happened is that when I graduated, soon after, I had a walk-in interview with one of our country's best known local companies at that time. I'm talking about 86, 87, when you guys were probably not born yet. So, and computers were not so common also. Some had computerized environment, others wouldn't have the computers. We had those telex machines for messaging, the fax machines. Have you guys seen the telex machine or the fax machine? All right, we used to have that. And but anyways, that company was fully computerized. We had an AS4 IBM that was state-of-the-art server machine that company had. The name of the company was Zelen. So I had a walk-in interview, and it was an engineering company. So I joined that company to begin my career, and I never looked back. So that was my beginning. It's very, very difficult for people to stick to a company for that long when you start with some company, because you don't know what are your interests. But I kind of liked so much the sales activities and all that stuff, and the learning and the exposure that I got in the initial days, that a thought never occurred to me that I should be doing something else. So I stuck with the company for 9 years. It was a good long period of my becoming, knowing the tricks of the trade of how to do selling. And I kind of enjoyed that, and that was my beginning. Then after that, I left Zelen's. I never wanted to leave it, but unfortunately, the company landed into a kind of crisis. Because we were doing a lot of business, but there was financial mismanagement. Is a classical case of how the companies collapse when there are management issues. We could see things were going from bad to worse, slowly and gradually, and there was primarily, I would say, there was a financial mismanagement, not in the wrong sense, but it was highly leveraged. There was a lot of bank borrowings to run the projects. We landed huge projects, and then the major business was from the government sector, and the government sector projects always have problems. They're long, difficult payment cycles and all that stuff. And we could not recover the money in time, so they had to resort to bank borrowings, and then there was a commercial borrowing. A commercial borrowing is an expensive borrowing. For example, at that time, I remember it was 3% per month, which is like 36% per year. So which business would get you 36% return first, and then whatever your return was being used to service the banks. Okay, so that was one crisis. It's a tragedy that a company of that name and brand and stature had to go down like that. We had people from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, best of the best lot that we had. And we were in the automation business, we were in the power business, we had GE retainership for engines, the airlines and all that stuff. It was a huge company. And we had actually, that company had given a vision in 90s, a vision of 2020, 2000. And they told us that where would we be in year 2000. So that was kind of a forward-looking company, okay? But there are undercurrents that you need to watch to see if the company are on the right track or managed well, because managing the company is the most critical thing that you need to do. You must have heard the Barings Bank debacle, right? A 100-year-old company went down in a day just because they had some very smart brokers who were banking on some currencies and which collapsing, and they held on to that money, and ultimately everything collapsed in a day. So managing your company is the real game. That's a very, very important aspect. And of course, financial management is one of the key aspects. So then after I joined a company called Watsela, NSD. The company which makes the power plants, the engines based power plants. We have a lot of install base. Pakistan mein aapne Topal Energy ka aapne suna hoga. They have 120 megawatts of power plants. So I used to work for them, selling power plants, right? And then after I joined Honeywell. So have you heard the name Honeywell? Okay. Honeywell was bought over by Light Signals. It was an engine manufacturers. But when they merged, Light Signal was a bigger company, buying a smaller company. But they retained the name of Honeywell because Honeywell was kind of a name which was everywhere. It was a global name. So I worked there for 6 years, and my job was to sort of appoint new partners for Pakistan. And I picked Avancion was back then was INET, Innovative. It was called Innovative. So and then the time came when Angro was acquiring Innovative. So Bakhtiar, who's the CEO of the company and the founder of the company, made me an offer if I would like to join this company. So Angro and Innovative, being acquired by a bigger conglomerate, and wanted to grow this company. So, and I happened to be in the same line of business. It was difficult transition because a $30 billion company joining a small company, but there was a window of opportunity where I could grow myself in managing people. I could manage myself in terms of sales, and I was managing the distributor network, which was fine. But then there was a bigger opportunity in my perspective in terms of l- greater learning and working with people, working with teams and all that stuff. And it was difficult um, to leave that comfort zone and accept the challenge, but it is always a great experience to leave your comfort zone and enter into a challenging domain where you challenge yourself and test out your capabilities and the potential that you hold. Because if you keep on doing the same thing over and over again, fine, but then you will never grow yourself until and unless you challenge yourself. So it was a gamble, but it was a good gamble, and I never looked back. So I joined this company as a regional sales manager for Karachi, the South region. So in 2 years, we did enough business in Karachi. Then I was moved to Lahore as operations general manager, operations, which includes sales and engineering, right? We did manage the operations well, and then I was promoted as this COO of the company in 2011. Okay, and now I'm again last year promoted as president of this company, which includes our Middle East operations as well. Okay, so this is my short journey of my career, and all I've learned is by experience. Okay, I'm as I've said that I'm a simple engineer, not a good one in terms of the process. If you say running a plant or something like that. But I had more experience of dealing with people and running around, and I knew every plant, but I was not expert of any plant. So I could sort of enjoy that also, because since I never liked the environment of working at the plant and the shifts and all that stuff. But that was good or bad, whatever. I mean, it depends on every individual. My greatest learning is that when we never, I think work was one thing that I was enjoying. If you enjoy your work, you never get tired, you never get bored, trust me. But if you are doing a 9-to-5 kind of thing, then it's not self-gratifying, or it's not really. But you should do your work as if it is something like, playing table tennis or horse riding, or whatever. Because that's what, for example, I play golf. I look up to weekends where I would go and play. You should look at your work like that. And the only way you can learn is by indulging yourself at a deeper level. But if you look at superficial things and all that stuff, you will never learn. So my first message to you is to learn. Learn as much as you can, and then apply what you learn. Because the best way to learn is to apply and develop, and that becomes your skill, right? So whatever you learn, you turn your knowledge into your skill, and skill only gets developed when you apply your skill. Second is that I would say that the process of human learning is by making mistakes. There is no other process. Do you know any other process? Whatever you do, you make mistakes. Never be shy of not deliberately making mistakes, but that's a process of learning where you do something and you realize that was not the best way of doing it, and then you say, okay, I know one way which doesn't work. I should try another one. So by doing that thing a number of times, you identify the most efficient way of doing something, right? And then you discard the other ways in that process. But once you learn something, when you make mistakes, that's for your learning. Do not repeat the same mistakes again. Make newer mistakes, and that's how you keep growing. So sometimes we do not, our fears do not let us make mistakes. We are afraid of our position. We are afraid of our for being ridiculed. We are afraid of being considered naive. We are afraid of, for whatever reasons, we do not venture out. That's the biggest mistake, because the human potential can never be unleashed unless you try out and see where do I stand as a person. So challenge yourself and see where it takes you. People who live in the comfort zone will never grow. In every sense of the word, I would say, okay, because our fears are socio-cultural, dominance positions. For example, if you are at a senior level and if you make a mistake, you run the risk of falling from the height, right? This is typically happens, and you normally play in your comfort zone. But are you playing for the galleries, or are you playing for your own growth? It's very important. So keep on developing yourself. The only asset that you can build, honestly, in my humble opinion, is to explore yourself and build yourself and take on the challenges in life. There is no other way. Of course, you need to seek guidance and your help, but use your own mind and apply your own mind and reach out and find new. I would say the team work is very, very important, right? So you need to, and the other issue that normally we have is managing our relationships, managing our communication with others, with colleagues, with whether it's a business issue or a personal issue or a relationship issue. It is the communication that matters a lot. So build your communication skills, very important. And there's a very nice book I would refer to you guys to read that if you get time. It's called a non-violent communication. Okay, and this talks about the name of the writer is probably the Marshall B. Rosenberg. So this is called the language of life. Communication is one thing that can solve problems or they can create problems. Normally, when we observe a behavior, we evaluate that person at the same very time. Okay, you are always like this. Now, when you say always like this, what will the other person do? Will become defensive, right? So, as he says that observe an event without evaluating. You can say that you did this in the last week few times. So that's an observation. He cannot deny or she cannot deny that observation. So you're not evaluating or categorizing the person, but yet you're observing that. There are four components of non-violent communication: is observation without evaluating, identifying and expressing your feelings, right? Then the needs have the roots in feelings. Why do you have a feeling? Because you have a certain need to be met. I want to be respected, therefore you should, I have a feeling. So I get upset when you do this to me, right? So upset is a feeling, and I need to be respected is a need, right? So need has a root in the feeling that is created in you. And I have not created that feeling in you. My words have triggered that feeling. How do you respond depends very much on you. हम ये कहते हैं ना कि what we do, the actions in response to somebody's instigation or whatever, only 10% of it is not in our control, because somebody said it and we have to take it. But 90% what follows depends on us, because our response that has triggered a kind of a sentiment or a feeling, and then we react to that. Okay, so when you observe, don't evaluate. You must express with the other person the feeling that you have. And why do you have that feeling? Because you have a need to be met. So you must express that feeling to the other person. And then what are you requesting that other person not to do or to do, so that that need is met and your feeling is not generated if it is a negative feeling. So you observe, you identify and express your feelings, and then you have why do you have that feeling, you also say, and then you're requesting the person. This is the four components that you pass on to the other person, and then you hear the other person, those four components. That's the basis of conflict resolution or communicating with two people. Normally हमारा झगड़ा होता रहता है ना लोगों से, अपने घर वालों से. It is because of that violent communication. We use words that trigger those kind of sentiments in which the choices are limited for the other person. They blame you, or sometimes you accept the blame. When I hear your feeling and say, oh sorry, I heard, that means I'm accepting the blame. There are many options how to deal with this. So this book is a real, I would say, a kind of a Bible of sorts, where you can learn the art of communicating with others on the basis of certain principles, which is nested in the basic needs of human beings when they communicate. Of course, without need you would not have any feeling, because अगर मुझे कोई चीज़ मेरी need नहीं है तो what kind of feeling would you trigger in me? So that's basically that. So I would highly recommend that book to all of you. It would help, building a good team, managing your relationships. You can apply across all walks of life. It's not restricted to any sort of. It's a language of life, as it's called. So this guy is a psychologist, is PhD, very respected, died probably last year, and a friend of Deepak Chopra. I don't know how many of you know Deepak Chopra. Is a writer also, an Indian writer. So it's a good read. So I would recommend. Anything. So the lines that I like the most in that book is fantastic. This is an opening line. What I want in my life is compassion. Right? What are you guys looking for in life? A compassion. Somebody should be compassionate. The two human beings should be compassionate. a flow between myself and others on a mutual giving from the heart. We don't give from the heart. We care sometimes to the caring is sometimes because to avoid any guilt or anything of that sort, or you don't use those words but not from the heart. So the compassion is only when you speak from the heart. The genuineness comes when you have it is coming from your heart. It's not from any kind of other motives, right? So I think I overshot my time, so thank you very much. It was nice talking to you. I wish we had more time so we could go on, but I want to thank you for your time, and I must say that you will really enjoy your journey in Avansion. It has a culture which is enabling culture. We have a very horizontal kind of hierarchy. There are always hierarchy, but everybody is accessible. You can voice your concerns, but do focus on learning. There is no. There are the only people who do not have issues are those who are who are not alive. The rest, all of us have some kind of issues. We need to learn to manage our issues. We need to learn to address those issues in a very candid way. And I don't know you know about the company and its values, but as you move into your roles within the company, you'll get to know a bit of more. One thing I have always heard from people after they have worked here as interns, and then after that they become that the culture of this company is very good. It's not to please me or to please anybody, but I really appreciate your candid feedback about the culture. And the culture is kind of the first thing for any learning to ensue or any work to be done. So that we are proud of, and culture is made by the people. And you become part of that. You spread that culture even more. You create that, carry that legacy forward. So once again, thank you very much, and I welcome you all once again. Take care.